Hey, what's up guys? Today I'm going to be bringing you my QBD guide. Before we get started, remember that you can look in the description for a table of contents linking to any specific part in the guide. That being said, let's jump into a general overview and description of the boss. The Queen Black Dragon is one of the highest level monsters in RuneScape, having a combat level of 900. She has 144,000 life points in total, with 36,000 on each phase. Her max standard hit is around 3,000 damage. She does not actually have any weakness outside of Dragonbane bolts or arrows. Now it's time to go over the requirements and recommendations for attempting the Queen Black Dragon. As for set in stone requirements, the only one is level 60 summoning. The Song from the Depths quest is not actually required to kill QBD, but highly recommended as it gives a passive damage reduction buff against QBD if it is completed. For the low level setup, I recommend having at least level 80 combat stats for whatever style you're going to be using, along with 85 herb lore for the super anti-fire potion. 67 plus summoning is also recommended for the War Tortoise familiar, along with 70 plus prayer for the piety, augury, and rigor prayers. For the high level setup, you will want level 90 or above in your desired combat style stats, along with 96 herb lore for the overload potion. You will also want level 96 summoning for the Pack-Yak familiar. As for your prayer, level 95 or above is optimal as it allows you to use the Soul Split and Turmoil variant curses. Before we go over the recommended gear, keep in mind that I will not be covering augmented armor and weapons, but I will link a guide to perking equipment made by another YouTuber on screen now with an annotation and in the description below. For the gear and inventory, I'll break it down into lower level setups and then the higher ones afterwards. For melee, full bandos is a good option along with Drygores. If you can't afford Drygores, then a great second option would be the Blades of Nymora and Avarice, as they have tier 90 accuracy with tier 80 damage and are very cheap. As for ranged, full Armadillo combined with a tier 80 ranged weapon setup such as a Royal Crossbow, Zerite Bow, or Chaotic Crossbows will do the job. You will also want to use Dragonbane ammunition here if you are able to, but if not, then just use the highest level ammo that matches your weapon's tier. For magic, full subjugation with a tier 80 weapon such as a Chaotic Staff or Virtus Wand and Book is a nice option. You will want to have Air Surge set as your main spell. For all of the lower level setups, the Vampirism Aura is a good option if you don't have the accuracy boosting ones. Also, for your jewelry, you can really just take whatever you personally prefer, but I recommend using the various Blood Necklace variants depending on the style. For your ring, I recommend an Asylum Surgeon ring, as it's very easy to obtain and also free, but again, feel free to use whatever you feel will work best for you. For your pocket slot, you could take Scrimshaws if you want, or God Books in place of the Sign of Life. For the inventories, it's pretty much exactly the same regardless of style, the only difference being the potions. If you can't make extremes yet, substitute in super potions for them. Now that we've gone over the lower level setups, let's take a look at the high level ones. For the melee setup, you will want Malevolent Armor. For your weapon, you will want either a set of Drygores or a Noxious Scythe. For ranged, ideally you will have Serenic Armor. If you have a Noxious Longbow, it works great with Dragonbane arrows. If you have Ascensions, you will actually want to use any offhand thrown weapon above tier 60 if you are using Dragonbane bolts. For example, main hand Ascension and offhand Death Lotus darts would actually be the best combination for QBD DPS. If you're wondering why this is, check in the description for an explanation. For magic, you will want full Tectonic with a Seismic Wand and Singularity or a Noxious Staff. Anything tier 80 and above is what you'll want for your boots and gloves for all styles. For your jewelry, I recommend an Amulet of Souls and the Asylum Surgeon's Ring. For your auras, you will want Supreme Brawler for melee and Supreme Runic Accuracy for magic. If using Dragonbane ammo, you won't benefit from the Supreme Sharpshooter aura, so it's really up to you what you want to use. For your Scrimshaws, I recommend Vampirism for melee, Cruelty for ranged, and Elements for magic. The inventories are pretty much all the same. Feel free to adjust your ratio of brews to rocktails as you get more comfortable with the boss. You don't really need brews at all, but it may help beginners in a pinch. I also highly recommend bringing the Ring of Vigor as a switch for when you use an ultimate ability, along with Adrenaline Potions or Replenishment Potions. Another really useful item to bring is the Enhanced Excalibur. For your summoning familiar, I recommend using a Beast of Burden when learning, and just filling it completely with rocktails or sharks depending on what you can afford. With the gear and inventories out of the way, let's jump into the boss's mechanics. The first of QBD's special mechanics we'll cover is the Firewall attack. You will get a message in your chat box saying the Queen Black Dragon takes a huge breath, and then shortly after she will exhale a wall of fire with a 1 square opening. There's a few different methods to dealing with this. One option is to tank it, which will hit you for 750 damage per tick that you are exposed to the fire. The other option is to find the gap between the flames, and stand within it so that the flames pass around you. The third and most difficult option allows you to negate all damage without going through the gap. To do this, wait until the flames are 1 square away from you, and then click to run through the fire. If you do it correctly, you won't take any damage whatsoever. Keep in mind that even the slightest bit of lag can cause you to take damage even if you timed your clicks correctly. I personally just tank the flames, or run through them so that it only hits me one time, but it may be worthwhile to try to avoid the damage whilst learning the boss. Really, this is a case of personal preference, so feel free to do whatever you are most comfortable with. The number of fire waves QBD will spawn at one time depends on the phase. On the first phase, she will only spawn 1 wave, on phase 2 she will spawn 2, and on phase 3 she will spawn 3. On phase 4 she will still only spawn 3 at a time. The second special mechanic to mention are the Tortured Souls. Tortured Souls begin to appear on phase 2 and onward. You will see a message in the chat box saying the Queen Black Dragon summons one or several of her captured souls. After this message appears, 1 or more Tortured Souls will spawn depending on the phase. On phase 1, this attack is not used. On phase 2, 1 soul is summoned always to the west of you. On phase 3, 2 souls will spawn on either side of you. On phase 4, 4 souls will spawn on each square that is diagonal to you. Once the soul spawns, a chat will appear above their head, and a chaotic damage cloud will float toward you and damage you if it reaches you. To avoid taking damage, run over the soul as soon as you see the text appear above their head. As you can see on screen now, if timed correctly, you should not take any damage at all on phase 2 and 3. On phase 4 it gets a bit more tricky, and you usually end up taking at least 1 hit. On phase 4, you will want to run diagonally over a soul, but typically at least 1 cloud will still make it to you. After they have spawned and used their ability, they have a couple more mechanics that they are able to take advantage of while they are alive. For example, QBD has the ability to siphon the remaining life points of a tortured soul and heal herself at a 2-to-1 ratio. The other ability is the Time Stop. If you leave a soul alive, you may see it teleport to the edge of the room and have a text line appear above its head instructing you to kill it. If you don't kill the soul within 10 seconds of the first warning, time will be frozen and you will not be able to do anything. QBD will, however, continue to keep attacking you, and all the damage you would have taken during the time stop is received in 1 tick, which means you can get KO'd depending on the phase and your initial life points going into the time stop. For these reasons, I recommend killing the souls after the initial chaotic cloud attack, as they have very low life points and are very easy to kill. The third special to cover is the varying forms that QBD will assume throughout the fight. Starting on phase 3 and carrying on to 4, QBD has the ability to assume either a hardened carapace or crystal form. The hardened carapace form causes her to increase her defense against physical attacks, meaning ranged and melee, which reduces your damage by 25%. Magic, however, will gain a 25% damage increase during this form. The crystal form is the opposite of the carapace, where magic damage is reduced by 25%, but melee and range is increased by 25%. The last special mechanic to go over is the Extremely Hot Flames. Starting on phase 4, QBD has the ability to use an extremely powerful version of her flame attack. If you're in the middle of the room during this attack, you will be hit 1,950 damage 3 times. If you stand to the sides, the damage received is reduced to 750, but also 3 times. Now that we know what to expect during the battle, let's jump into the fight itself. I highly recommend getting around 70 to 100% adrenaline before going into the fight on the Grotworms. Once you have your starting adrenaline, enter the QBD's portal. On phase 1, the only things to worry about are her standard attacks and the flame wall special mentioned before. Your goal here is to damage her life points down as quick as possible and touch the central artifact once her HP is depleted. If using magic or ranged, I recommend just standing west of the artifact so that you can activate it instantly to avoid any Grotworm spawns. As for your DPS on this phase, you will want to use your threshold abilities at the very start of the phase, which is why I recommend getting starting adrenaline from the Grotworms outside. Once you activate the middle artifact, phase 2 begins. Phase 2 introduces the tortured souls mentioned earlier. Again, you will want to be cycling through your threshold abilities on this phase, and dealing with the specials as they arise. Once you damage QBD down fully, you will want to run to the southwest artifact and activate it. You won't want to stand on the magical platform for too long, as you start to take damage from it, taking hits of 1,500 at a time. I recommend using the escape ability just after you touch the artifact. If using melee, you can use the barge ability to quickly get back into combat. Phase 3 is where things start to vary between the combat styles. We'll break it down into two parts. First, I'll cover what to do if using melee. You will want to continue what you did for the first two phases, dealing with special attacks and using thresholds to damage QBD. You will want to save Assault for phase 4, so I recommend avoiding using it during phase 3. Once you deplete QBD's life points, click the southeast artifact. On your way to the artifact, make sure you switch your Ring of Vigor on, use Berserk, and then sip your Adrenaline Potion. Use either Sever, Decimate, or Cleave depending on your weapon to build up to 50% Adrenaline or above, and then use Assault. In many cases this will finish the boss, but if not, use your highest damaging basic abilities again, and build to being able to use Destroy for dual wield, or Hurricane if using a two-handed weapon. Once her life points reach 0, run to the last artifact and touch it to be able to claim your loot. Keep in mind that you will be taking a lot of damage when Berserk is activated, so don't be afraid to safe up as QBD special attacks can be very dangerous on this phase. Jumping back to phase 3, for ranged and magic, this is where I recommend using your ultimate abilities. We'll cover what to do for ranged first. Stand around where I am in this clip and switch on your Ring of Vigor and then activate Death Swiftness. Put your main ring back on, sip your Adrenaline Potion, and then use either the Dazing Shot or Needle Strike followed by a Snipe, and then use Snapshot. At this point you should not have much damage left to do on this phase, just continue to DPS QBD down with basics until the southeast artifact is able to be activated. Once her life points are depleted, activate the artifact to start phase 4, and then escape back into your Death Swiftness. Use Rapid Fire, followed by Snapshot as soon as you can once it comes off cooldown. This will pretty much always be enough to finish the kill. Continue to attack her if necessary, and activate the final artifact to open the door to her loot room. Remember to be prepared for any special attacks like the 4 Tortured Souls, Firewalls, and Extremely Hot Flames covered earlier. For magic, you will want to pretty much mirror the method you used for ranged, but with the corresponding magic abilities. So for example, stand where I am in this clip and use Sunshine, Adren Pot, Ring Switch, and build to being able to use Wild Magic. Finish the phase, activate the artifact, and then return to your Sunshine. Use Asphyxiate as soon as you can, and then Wild Magic once it comes off cooldown. Again, this should be enough to finish the kill, but if not, then just finish off whatever life points she has left, and claim your loot. If you're going to be camping QBD, I highly recommend stalling your Adrenaline between kills, which is the primary purpose for bringing a shield. The type doesn't really matter at all, since you'll only be using it to stall. That covers everything, guys. I wish you the best of luck on taking down the Queen Black Dragon. If you did enjoy the video, I would really appreciate some feedback and a like, and as always, feel free to subscribe for future guides and RuneScape content. Thanks again, guys, and good luck at the Queen Black Dragon.